This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices fell on Thursday after gaining 3% in the previous session as investors are wary higher U.S. tariffs may be reinstated, which could cause lower fuel demand, and as major producers are expected to announce an output hike. Brent crude futures fell 45 cents, or 0.65%, to $68.66 a barrel by 0645 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude declined 44 cents, or 0.66%, to $67.01 a barrel. Both contracts rose to their highest in 1 week on Wednesday as Iran suspended cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog, raising concerns the lingering dispute over the Middle East producer's nuclear program may again devolve into armed conflict, and the U.S. and Vietnam reached a preliminary trade deal.
U.S. crude oil and gasoline inventories rose unexpectedly last week as both exports and demand fell sharply, the Energy Information Administration, EIA, said on Wednesday. Crude inventories rose by 3.8 million barrels to 419 million barrels in the week ending June 27, the EIA said, compared with analysts' expectations in a Reuters poll for a 1.8 million barrel draw. Crude stocks at the Cushing, Oklahoma, delivery hub fell by 1.5 million barrels. Oil prices paired earlier gains following the unexpected build in inventories, which was also in part driven by higher imports.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The U.S. cleared the way to resume ethane exports to China on Wednesday, sending letters to producers' enterprise products partners and Energy Transfer rescinding a restrictive license requirement put in place just weeks ago, a sign that the U.S.-China trade truce was on track. The U.S. had placed restrictions on ethane, and a wide swathe of other exports, to China in late May and early June after accusing Beijing of slowing shipments of rare earths vital to automakers and other industries. Wednesday's letter lifting the license requirement comes after the United States and China resolved issues last week surrounding shipments of rare earth minerals and magnets to the U.S.
The European Union has increased the maximum capacity of electricity imports from Ukraine by 38.5%. Giving Kyiv a chance to earn money to rebuild power facilities destroyed by Russian attacks, Ukraine's energy ministry said on Thursday. The new limit of 900 megawatt-hours will be in place until August 1, and then reviewed on a monthly basis. Ukraine started large power exports to the EU before Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. It stopped them after Russia damaged Ukrainian power generating facilities, before resuming them earlier this year. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Copper on the London Metal Exchange and the Shanghai Futures Exchange held near the highest levels since late March, driven by concerns over tight regional supply and increased shipments to the U.S. as traders rushed to beat potential import tariffs. 3-month copper on the LME fell 0.35% to $9,978 per metric ton as of 0703 GMT. Still near its highest since March 26, and the most traded copper contract on the SHFE eased 0.07% to 80,560 yuan, $11,246.37, or its strongest level since March 27. Copper stocks at the SHFE are just too low in absolute volume, thus being more supportive to prices, said a Shanghai-based metals analyst from a futures company.
Russian mining giant Nornickel expects this year's nickel surplus to be 120,000 tons, which is 30,000 tons lower than it previously thought, it said in a metals market review on Thursday. Nornickel, the world's largest palladium producer and a major producer of refined nickel, said it had lowered its estimate of the nickel surplus from 150,000 tons seen previously to 120,000 tons. Next year, the surplus is expected to expand to 130,000 tons, Nornickel said, while the palladium market is seen balanced this year and next.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Euronext wheat edged up on Wednesday in a slight bounce from contract lows, supported by an easing in the euro and further recovery in Chicago prices. Gains were modest though as a favorable outlook for the Northern Hemisphere harvest and weak export prospects for Western European wheat hung over the market, traders said. September wheat settled 0.6% up at €195.75, $230.73 per metric ton. On Tuesday it fell to a contract low at €192.75 before paring losses as Chicago wheat rallied.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.